A folded note slipped from my wife's jacket pocket, its unfamiliar handwriting slicing through my heart like a razor. That was the moment I knew the street light outside would never shine the same again. I'm Caleb, and my world unraveled 5 years into my marriage with Sienna. We lived in Portland, Oregon, a city pulsing with life. But lately, our home felt like a hollow shell. I worked from our cramped apartment coding indie video games, pouring my soul into pixelated worlds. Sienna, a project manager at a tech startup, thrived in her high-stakes job, always chasing the next deal. Her late nights and sharp excuses about client dinners had become routine, but I brushed it off, telling myself it was just her ambition. Still, the distance grew. Her touch felt colder, her smiles rarer, and our intimate moments faded into awkward silences. I started to wonder if I was the problem, if I wasn't enough. That note changed everything. I found it one evening, tangled in her jacket while sorting laundry. The scrawled words burned into my mind. Meet me at the Rusty Anchor, 10 p.m. Don't let anyone know. My stomach churned. Sienna had never mentioned that bar, a gritty spot downtown far from her usual polished haunts. I shoved the note into my pocket, my hands trembling, and tried to focus on my laptop. But the words looped in my head, a taunting rhythm. Was she hiding something, or was I just paranoid? I couldn't shake it. That night, while Sienna slept, I grabbed her work phone from the nightstand. My heart pounded as I scrolled through her messages, each swipe of betrayal of trust one didn't want to admit. Then I saw it. A thread with the contact labeled D, sweet, flirty texts, laced with promises to meet after hours. One message from last week hit like a punch. Can't wait to see you tonight. You're my escape. I froze, the phone shaking in my grip. My wife, the woman I loved, was slipping away into someone else's arms. The next evening, Sienna breezed in, her heels clicking, her smile practiced. She mentioned another late meeting, her eyes avoiding mine. I nodded, my throat tight, and watched her leave, her perfume lingering like a ghost. I couldn't just sit there. I grabbed my keys and drove to the Rusty Anchor, my pulse racing. The bar was a dim, crowded dive, neon signs flickering against grimy windows. I parked across the street, sinking low in my seat, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Then I saw her. Sienna stepped out of a cab, her red dress catching the streetlight's glow. She laughed, her head tilting back, as a man in a tailored suit joined her. He was tall, confident, the kind of guy who owned every room. My chest tightened. They didn't go inside. Instead, they lingered by the curb, his hand brushing her arm, her smile too warm, too intimate. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, willing myself to be wrong. But I wasn't. They climbed into his sleek black car, and I followed, my headlights cutting through the Portland drizzle. The city blurred past, a maze of lights and shadows, as I tailed them to a boutique hotel downtown. I parked a block away, my breath shallow, and watched them step out, his arm around her waist. They disappeared through the hotel's glass doors, but I couldn't move. I stumbled out of my car, the rain soaking my jacket, and stood under a flickering streetlight. Through the lobby window, I saw them at the elevator, her head resting on his shoulder. My world tilted. The streetlight buzzed above me, then went dark, mirroring the void in my chest. I drove home, the rain hammering my windshield, my mind a storm of rage and grief. How long had this been going on? Was everything a lie? I replayed every moment of our marriage, searching for clues I'd missed. The late nights, the excuses, the ways she'd pull away when I reached for her. I felt like a fool, a man who'd built a castle on sand. Back in our apartment, I sat on the couch. The note crumpled in my fist. I wanted to scream, to confront her, but something held me back. I needed proof, a plan, anything to make sense of the chaos. The next day, Sienna acted like nothing was wrong, humming as she made coffee. I watched her, my heart a tangle of love and betrayal. I couldn't confront her yet, not until I knew what to do. But the note burned in my pocket, a ticking bomb. I had to act, to uncover the truth, or I'd lose myself in the wreckage of our marriage. Before we dive deeper into this heart-wrenching story, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if this tale grips you, hit that subscribe button to support us. The rain-soaked note from Sienna's jacket haunted me, its words a relentless echo in my skull. I couldn't stay in our Portland apartment, surrounded by her lies. My heart pounded with a mix of fury and despair, urging me to flee. I grabbed my keys, a backpack with essentials, and drove into the night, the city lights fading in my rearview mirror. I had no destination, only a need to escape the wreckage of my marriage. I drove for hours, the highway stretching into darkness, until my gas gauge blinked red. I pulled into a rundown gas station and auto shop, about 50 miles from Portland, nestled in the shadow of the Cascade Mountains. The neon sign flickered, casting a weak glow over the gravel lot. Inside, the air smelled of oil and stale coffee. A man in his 50s, with weathered hands and a crooked smile, stood behind the counter, wiping grease from a wrench. His name tag read Wes. He sized me up, his eyes sharp but kind, and offered a nod. I mumbled something about needing gas, but my trembling hands betrayed me. I must have looked like a man on the edge, because Wes leaned forward and said he had seen that look before, years ago, in his own mirror. We talked as he filled my tank. Wes shared his story, his voice low and steady. His wife had cheated a decade ago, leaving him broken until he rebuilt himself in these mountains. He said pain was a fire, capable of burning you to ash or forging you into something stronger. His words hit hard, like a lifeline tossed into my storm. He mentioned a small cabin on his land, a mile up the road, sitting empty. He offered it to me, cheap, as a place to clear my head. I hesitated, my mind still reeling, but the idea of a refuge felt like salvation. I thanked him, promising to think it over, and drove to a nearby motel. Collapsing onto a lumpy bed, the notes still crumpled in my pocket. The next morning, I returned to Portland, my resolve hardening. Sienna greeted me with a casual kiss, her eyes darting away as she mentioned another late night at work. I nodded, my face a mask, but inside I burned. I asked about her evening, my voice calm but probing. She snapped, accusing me of being clingy, her words sharp enough to cut. I saw the lie in her eyes, the same lie I'd seen in those texts. I didn't push further. Confronting her now felt pointless, like shouting into a void. Instead, I began to plan. Over the next few days, I moved in silence, my actions deliberate. I packed my laptop, clothes, and a few keepsakes, stashing them in my car while Sienna was at work. Each item I took felt like a step toward freedom, but also a stab of grief for the life I thought we had. I avoided her gaze, her touch, her voice, knowing one wrong move could unravel me. I visited Wes again, sealing the deal in the cabin. He handed me a key, his grip firm, and said I was doing the right thing. His confidence steadied me, but the weight of my decision pressed hard. That Friday, Sienna announced another company event, her smile too bright, her perfume too strong. I knew where she was going, who she'd be with. My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice even, wishing her a good night. As her car pulled away, I sprang into action. I grabbed the last of my things, my hands shaking with adrenaline. The apartment felt like a tomb, every corner holding memories now tainted. I sat at the kitchen table, the note from her jacket in front of me, and wrote my own. I saw you at the hotel. Goodbye. I slid my wedding ring off, placing it on the paper, its glint a final farewell. The act felt like severing a limb, but also like breaking chains. I locked the door and drove into the night, the city shrinking behind me. The road to the Cascades was winding, the darkness swallowing my headlights. My phone buzzed with Sienna's texts, her usual check-ins, but I powered it off, the silence a relief. I reached Wes's land just before dawn, the cabin a small, weathered structure nestled among pines. Inside, it smelled of cedar and dust, with a cot, a desk, and a wood stove. I dropped my bag, sank onto the cot, and let the quiet envelop me. For the first time in days, I breathed. The next morning, I woke to the sound of wind through the trees. I laced up my running shoes and hit the trails, the mountain air sharp in my lungs. Each step pounded out the pain, the betrayal, the questions I couldn't answer. Why had she done it? How long had she lied? The trail stretched ahead, rugged and endless, mirroring the path I now faced. I didn't have answers, but I had this place, this moment. I set up my laptop, connected to a shaky hotspot, and dove into work, the familiar rhythm of coding grounding me. The cabin became my sanctuary, a place to rebuild what Sienna had shattered. But the pain lingered, a shadow I couldn't outrun. At night, alone with my thoughts, I saw her face, her laugh, her lies. I clutched the cabin's key, a talisman of my escape, and vowed to keep moving forward. Wes's words echoed, "Forge or burn." I chose to forge. The Cascades embraced me, their icy winds a balm for the wounds Sienna left behind. My cabin, a cedar-scented refuge, became my world, its simplicity a stark contrast to the chaos I fled in Portland. I settled into a rhythm, coding by day, running trails at dawn, and joining locals at Wes's auto shop for beers in the evenings. The mountains taught me to breathe again, but Sienna's shadow lingered her. Betrayal a bruise that throbbed in quiet moments. My phone, powered off since the night I left, stayed buried in a drawer. I couldn't face her messages, her voice, her excuses, but she found other ways. My email inbox filled with her pleas, each one a fresh cut. She wrote of missing me, of needing to explain, her words dripping with desperation. I deleted them unread, my jaw tight, refusing to let her invade my sanctuary. One evening, after a long run, I made the mistake of opening one. She admitted to the affair, calling it a mistake born of work stress, claiming her colleague had manipulated her. She said she ended it the day I left, but her words felt hollow, a script to reel me back. I slammed my laptop shut, my chest heaving. Her confession wasn't remorse, it was a trap. I blocked her email, changed my number, and vowed to keep her out. Life in the mountains moved forward. Wes became a steady presence, his gruff humor and hard-earned wisdom grounding me. He invited me to his shop's weekly gatherings, where locals swapped stories over cheap beer. I laughed for the first time in months, the sound foreign, but welcome. I met hunters, hikers, and drifters, each with their own scars, their camaraderie, a quiet strength. Wes watched me closely, his eyes sharp, and said I was starting to look like a man who belonged here. His words carried weight, a reminder that I was forging something new. One crisp morning, I hiked to a nearby cliff, its jagged face a challenge I couldn't resist. A young woman struggled with her climbing gear, her rope tangled. I offered to help, my hand steady as I untangled the knots. Her name was Jade, a 27-year-old mountaineer with a quick laugh and eyes that sparkled like the morning frost. She thanked me, calling me the conqueror of the cliffs, her teasing light but genuine. We talked as we climbed, her stories of scaling peaks across the West pulling me out of my head. She lived for the thrill, she said, and I envied her freedom. We parted with a promise to meet again, her number scrawled on a scrap of paper. That night, I smiled, the ache in my chest a little lighter, but Sienna's reach was relentless. A month later, I stopped by Wes' shop to grab coffee. He handed me a small wooden box, his expression grim. A woman had dropped it off, he said, describing Sienna's red coat and strained smile. My stomach dropped. I opened the box under the shop's fluorescent lights, my hands unsteady. Inside were our wedding photos, my face smiling in a life that no longer existed, and a letter. Her handwriting trembled, begging for a chance to talk, swearing she had changed. The sight of those photos, once treasures, now felt like a violation. I shoved the box under the counter, my pulse racing, and asked Wes how she found me. He shook his head, saying she mentioned a mutual friend, Milo, from Portland. I cursed under my breath. Milo, always too eager to play peacemaker, must have let slip my location. I drove back to the cabin, the box rattling in my passenger's seat, a ticking bomb. That night, I sat by the wood stove, the letter in my hands. Wes's voice echoed in my mind, urging me to face the past or let it consume me. I wanted to burn the letter to erase Sienna's hold, but I read it first. She wrote of her shame, her loneliness, her regret, but her words rang false, laced with the same self-justification as her emails. I tore the letter apart, fed it to the flames, and watched it curl into ash. The photos followed, their edges blackening, our smiles dissolving. The fire roared, a mirror of my resolve. I wouldn't let her drag me back. The next day, I ran harder, the trails inclined, punishing my lungs. Jade joined me, her presence a quiet comfort. She sensed my tension, but didn't pry, instead challenging me to race her to the ridge. I laughed, the sound raw, and pushed forward, the wind carrying away the last of Sienna's shadow. Back at the cabin, I taped Jade's number to my desk, a small act of hope. I was done hiding. Sienna could chase me, but she wouldn't find the man she broke. I was building something stronger, piece by piece, in the cold wind of the Cascades. The Cascades had become my haven, their rugged trails and quiet nights stitching together the pieces of my broken heart. 2 years had passed since I fled Portland, leaving Sienna and her betrayal behind. My cabin, my work, and my runs with Jade filled my days with purpose, while Wes's shop offered laughter and grounding. I thought I had outrun my past, but Sienna had other plans, her shadow creeping back like a fog rolling down the mountains. I sat at a small brewery in a nearby town, nursing a beer, the hum of conversation blending with the clink of glasses. The door swung open, and my breath caught. Sienna stood there, her red coat stark against the dim light, her eyes scanning the room. Time hadn't dulled her beauty, but her face carried a weight I didn't recognize, a mix of determination and pain. She spotted me, her gaze locking onto mine, and my heart thudded, a trapped animal in my chest. I gripped my glass, willing myself to stay calm, but the room seemed to shrink, the air thick with the ghosts of our marriage. She approached, her steps hesitant, and sat across from me without asking. Her voice trembled as she spoke, saying she had been searching for me for months. She apologized, her words spilling out, each one a plea for forgiveness. She admitted to the affair, saying it cost her everything, her job, her reputation, her peace. The company had fired her after the scandal broke, and her lover, exposed by his fiancée, had turned on her, blaming her for his ruin. She said she ended it the day I left, but her eyes flickered, a hint of the old deceit. I listened, my face still on my mind racing. Her words stirred the ashes of my pain, but I refused to let them ignite. She reached for my hand, her fingers cold, and I pulled back, my chair scraping the floor. She flinched, tears welling, and said she had driven to this town every weekend, hoping to find me. She spoke of her loneliness, her regret, her need to make things right. I cut her off, my voice low but sharp, saying she had burned our life to the ground. I told her I saw her at the hotel, her laughter, her betrayal, and that no apology could erase that night. The brewery went quiet, heads turning, but I didn't care. Her tears fell, but I felt no pity, only a cold resolve. She begged to talk somewhere private, suggesting my cabin, but I refused, my gut twisting at the thought of her in my sanctuary. I agreed to walk outside, needing air, needing distance. Under the streetlight, its glow flickering like my resolve. She pressed closer, her perfume a cruel echo of our past. She leaned in, her lips brushing my cheek, a desperate attempt to reclaim what was lost. I stepped back, my hands raised, anger flaring. I said she had no right, that her choices ended us. Her face crumpled, and she sobbed, clutching her coat, her body shaking in the cold. We walked down the quiet street, the town asleep around us. She confessed to hiring a private investigator, a detail that hit like a sucker punch. She had tracked me through Milo, our old friend, who let slip my new life in a moment of weakness. The revelation stunned me, my skin crawling at the thought of being hunted. I stopped, staring at her, my voice barely a whisper, asking how she could think this would fix anything. She stammered, saying she needed closure, needed me, but her words felt like chains, not salvation. I saw her then, not as my wife, but as a stranger, clinging to a fantasy I no longer shared. I softened, not out of love, but exhaustion. I gave her my new email, a concession to end the night, but warned her not to expect more. I said I might consider her a friend, someday, but never again a lover. She nodded, tears streaming, and promised to return. I watched her walk to her car, her silhouette fading under the streetlight, a final image I wanted to forget. I drove back to the cabin, the road winding through the dark, my mind a storm of relief and rage. Sienna had found me, but she hadn't won. I locked the door, the cabin's silence wrapping around me, and sank onto the cot, my hands trembling. The next morning, I ran with Jade, her laughter pulling me back to the present. She noticed my distraction, her eyes sharp, and challenged me to climb a new peak. I agreed, the physical strain grounding me, the mountain a reminder of my strength. Back at West's shop, I told him about Sienna, my voice steady but raw. He listened, then clapped my shoulder, saying I had done what most couldn't, face the past without breaking. His words settled me, a beacon in the fog. I was free, not because Sienna was gone, but because I chose to let her go. The streetlight might flicker, but I would find my own light. The encounter with Sienna under the streetlight left a lingering chill, but I refused to let it unravel the life I had built in the Cascades. My cabin remained my fortress, its cedar walls shielding me from her echoes. I dove deeper into my work, my runs with Jade, and the evenings at West's shop, determined to keep my peace. Sienna's email arrived the next day, a flood of words begging me to join her in San Francisco, promising a fresh start. Her desperation seeped through the screen, but I felt nothing, only a quiet certainty that she no longer held power over me. I deleted the message, blocked her address, and shut my laptop, the act final like closing a book I never wanted to reread. Days turned to weeks, and the mountains worked their magic. Jade became a constant, her fearless spirit pulling me into climbs and late-night talks by the fire. She never pushed for my story, but her presence healed in ways I hadn't expected. I started to see a future, not just a refuge. Wes noticed the change, his gruff approval a nod to my progress. He said I'd found my footing, a rare thing for a man who had lost so much. His words anchored me, a reminder that I had chosen to forge, not burn. But Sienna's reach lingered, a shadow I couldn't fully shake. One gray afternoon, I stopped at a remote gas station on my way to a client meeting, the kind of place where the pumps creaked and the air smelled of pine and diesel. As I filled my tank, a familiar red coat caught my eye across the lot. My pulse spiked. Sienna stood by her car, her face pale, her eyes wide with recognition. She crossed the gravel, her steps unsteady, and stopped a few feet away. She said she hadn't expected to see me, that she was passing through on her way to San Francisco. Her voice cracked as she apologized again, saying she had found my blog, a personal journal I shared with a small online community. Milo, ever the meddler, had sent her the link, thinking it might help her understand. The revelation hit like a cold wind. My blog, a raw account of my pain and recovery, was meant for strangers, not her. I clenched my fists, my voice low, saying she had no right to invade that space. She flinched, tears welling, and said she needed to know I was okay, that she was moving away for good. She wished me happiness, her words soft but heavy, and turned to leave. I stood frozen, the pump clicking in the silence, and watched her drive off, her taillights fading into the dusk. I felt no anger, only relief, a weight lifting I hadn't known I carried. Back at the cabin, I deleted the blog, severing the last thread connecting me to her. Jade joined me that night, sensing my unease, and we climbed to a ridge under the stars. She said the mountains always had a way of sorting things out, her hand brushing mine, a quiet promise. I smiled, the stars brighter than ever, and knew I was home. Months later, Wes shared news from a mutual friend. Sienna had settled in San Francisco, but her new relationship with another ambitious tech executive was unraveling, marred by the same patterns of deceit. The news didn't surprise me, but it underscored a truth. Her choices were hers alone, and I was free of their consequences. I had learned to forgive, not for her, but for myself, to release the pain and claim my life. The Cascades taught me that betrayal could break you, but it could also open doors to something stronger. I ran my trails, coded my games, and laughed with Jade, each moment a testament to my rebirth. Sienna was a shadow, fading with every step I took into the light. This journey has ended with raw emotion. Does this conclusion satisfy you, or catch you off guard? Share your thoughts below. If this story makes you crave more, drop a like and subscribe for the next unexpected tale. Thanks for joining me. See you in the next story.